Hey everybody, welcome back to the studio. Well, in a previous video, I talked about a video I was listening to, and this guy came up with 10 ways of making $1 million in doing pictures. And the last video, I talked about him telling you how you can make $1 million a year in taking legal photographs or photos that will be used in court cases by lawyers, by whatever, and how far out he was and how bizarre he was in what he was saying. In this video, I want to talk about another area that he talked about, and that is how to make $1 million a year going out shooting nature and wildlife photography. So I'm going to talk about what I've seen over the years I've been in this, how much I've made by doing it, and what you could possibly make by doing it yourself now. So let's get into it. When I started first taking pictures 37 plus years ago, boy, I feel old every time I say that. I don't even think I'm 30 years old yet. I saw a lot of people that were out there that were shooting pictures and were making a good living at it. Some back in the 80s were making over $100,000 a year at it. Some even more, some a lot less. Many of the people back then were making money in a couple of ways. First way was stock images. What are stock images? You go out as a photographer, you shoot some pictures, you get them developed. Back then it was slides. You submit them to an agency. Today the biggest name in photo agencies is Getty Images. They put your pictures up on their site, in their brochures, and their flyers, whatever it was, depending upon how long ago it was. And people would go through, say, I like that image, I want to use that image, and they would pay Getty Images or whatever the stock agency was. And then once they were paid, they would give you part of the sale. So if a company came up and said, I love that picture of the mountain, I want to use it in an advertising campaign, how much is it for full usage rights at maybe $1,000? Getty Images would sell it to the client for $1,000, and the photographer may get $800, $600, $500, $400, whatever it was, whatever your contract said. So that was the first way a lot of photographers made money. Second way was working for magazines directly, different publications. Third way was selling to galleries. Fourth way was having your own shop. If you've ever heard of a guy by the name of Ansel Adams, you know that you can go to a shop and you can buy Ansel Adams print, which is run by the Ansel Adams Foundation, which they all make the money from it, and they're the ones that make the money. I know a number of photographers who did that. They had places at resorts, whether it be in Banff, whether it be in Yellowstone, wherever it was, and that they would sell their prints, their work around there, and they would make whatever money. That's how it was working back then. A number of photographers made a good living. Then, as the years went on, things changed, especially when digital photography came out. When digital photography came out, the value of photographs plummeted. So what's it like today? What could you reasonably expect to make today as a photographer? Utilizing all the before ones, stock images, working for magazines, selling your stuff through galleries, having your own store, what could you possibly make? Could you make the $1 million a year? Think if you worked yourself to death, you could probably do that. I think if you became a big enough name, you could probably do that. But, and here's the big but, I do not think that any photographer today can make that money by just selling the product that they need to sell more than the product. I'm not going to get into name dropping. I'm not going to get on all this because people like people, people hate people. But there are people out there who sell their name. They also sell prints, but the big thing is the name that's on the print. People want the print by Joe Smith because Joe Smith has a big following. Are they actually selling the photo or are they selling the name? Well, I think they're selling the name. Do their photos sell? Their photos sell. I know some of the big names out there. I've seen some of their work. And I know local photographers here in Alberta that are better than these big names that say they're making $5, $10, $20 million a year through their galleries, through whatever, selling prints. They're just so much better, these local photographers, but they don't have that name recognition. So if you're a photographer, if you're getting into photography, can you make the $1 million a year? If you sell you as much as you sell your work, I think you can. What do I mean by that? Well, if you follow YouTube, if you type in the van tag or the hashtag van life, you're going to find a lot of people who say living in a van is the best thing in the world and you don't have to ever work and you can. But these people are lying to you. They're actually working their butts off, marketing their channel, marketing their merchandise, marketing all their stuff, that they're selling you the van life hashtag, but they're also doing a lot of work to sell themselves. And I think that's likewise in photography. Hashtag photographer. I think you're going to find that a lot of people who are selling their prints have sold their lifestyle, have sold their good looks, have sold their personality, have sold the dream more than they've sold the work. Can you sell stuff through stock agencies such as Getty Images? I think you can. I really do. Do I think you can make a good living from it? Probably not, because so many people are doing it. And you don't need to go through Getty Images. You can get it online. I can go online and find 10 million images tomorrow of one subject, and some of them are going to be for a penny. Some of them I don't even have to pay for, that if I buy a yearly subscription to a site, I get to download 10 images a month for whatever I want to do. So there's not as much money to be made in that. Are there magazines hiring people? Yep, there are. I get contacted quite often to shoot for magazines. Unfortunately, a lot of magazines have cut their price so low that it's not worth it. When you price in gas, accommodation, time, and everything like that, a $1,000 paycheck for a week's worth of work is not worth it, especially when you have to pay out $500. So what else can you do? Well, you can teach. And this is the big thing right now. It's that a lot of people, they do workshops, they do expeditions, they do safaris, they do whatever, and they tag their name onto that. And at the same time, not only do they get paid for doing that, they get paid by camera manufacturers and suppliers for marketing their material. They get paid for doing their little presentation. They get paid for their name. They get paid for everything through it. And yes, they still sell some stuff. Galleries? How about galleries? Yep, galleries still sell. But right now, photography is probably one of the lowest selling things in the gallery because everybody's a photographer. Years ago, there was a local photographer, really good. Scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best in the world. This guy was 10, maybe 10.5. He used to make between $10,000 and $30,000 on a weekend at a market. So whether it be a Christmas market, an artisan market, whatever. This guy made a ton of money. Now, that wasn't just prints. That was prints. That was Prince frame. That was all different stuff, his books, whatever. Last time I talked to him, which was probably 5 years ago, maybe even longer, he was making in a year less than $10,000. He is good. He's a really good photographer. But like he said, he was older. He wasn't the new in-person. The camera manufacturers had left him. They weren't interested in him. Unless he did courses, which he hated doing, he just was not making the money. So how have I made money over the years? Well, unfortunately, in the early years of me taking pictures, I never broke down my nature and wildlife photography as one part of my business. My business was a whole. So in a year that I made $100,000 or $150,000 or $200,000, whatever it was in sales, I didn't break down what my nature and wildlife photography was out of the pie. 1 year, just using $100,000 as a baseline. 1 year, my weddings maybe $85,000. My commercial maybe $10,000. My nature and wildlife may have been $5,000. I honestly don't know. In another year, I may have done $55,000 in nature and wildlife and less in weddings. I don't know. Today, how much am I doing? It varies. I can do from $5,000 or $10,000 a month in nature and wildlife photography down to zero, whatever. During the summertime, I get very few sales. This time of year, around Christmas time, and just after Christmas, I get tons of sales. I can have people lined up at the door ordering prints. It's really hard to say. So could you or can you do it? I think if you're young, if you sell yourself as much as you sell the product, I think if you go out there and market yourself constantly, you could make a good living, but it's not just going to be selling the work you take. It's going to be the whole package. So until next time, get out there and take some pictures. Have a wonderful time doing it, and I hope you make some good money. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye now.